Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe and support me. In the heart of a continent where humans, elves, and dwarves coexisted for centuries, the sun cast its golden rays over the sprawling capital city of Elander. The city was a testament to the unity that had allowed these races to survive the ravages of war. Towers of silver and stone reached skyward, a blend of elven elegance, dwarven craftsmanship, and human ambition. Today, that unity stood on a precipice, threatened not by external forces, but by the deep divisions within. For the first time in history, the three races were preparing to elect a president, a single leader who would guide their future. But what was supposed to be a symbol of peace had instead become a battleground for forces far beyond anyone's understanding. At the heart of the conflict were two candidates, each backed by powerful religious factions. And in the shadows, unseen forces were stirring. Illyria stood at the edge of a marble balcony overlooking the grand square. The elven candidate for president, she was a figure of calm and grace, her silvery hair catching the light as it spilled from the heavens. Her emerald eyes, sharp and contemplative, watched the crowds below, humans, elves, and dwarves gathered in uneasy anticipation. Behind her, the ornate doors of the council hall creaked open, and soft footsteps approached. "You should be resting, Illyria," said Lyrael, her closest advisor and confidant, a tall, slender elf with raven black hair that contrasted sharply with her pale skin. "Tomorrow is the final debate." Illyria's gaze didn't waver. "Rest can wait. Too much is at stake. Your strength will be needed," Lyrael reminded her gently, "especially against him." Marcus. The name stirred something deep inside Illyria, a sense of foreboding. Marcus had once been a noble warrior, a hero of the Great War, but somewhere along the way, he had changed. His platform, filled with promises of upheaval and radical change, appealed to those who had grown disillusioned with the peace that the Alliance had brought. And it wasn't just humans who followed him. Many among the dwarves, and even a few elves, had been swayed by his words. But it was the Church of Darkness that concerned Illyria most. The shadowy religious faction had backed Marcus from the start, their influence spreading like a dark cloud over the continent. And where the Church of Darkness moved, chaos often followed. "I don't fear Marcus," Illyria said, her voice steady. "It's the forces behind him that worry me." Lyrael nodded, her expression darkening. "The Church of Darkness has grown bold. Rumors are spreading of their involvement in the assassination of council members, mysterious deaths, and ancient magic." Illyria finally turned to face her advisor. "Do we have proof?" "Not yet," Lyrael admitted, "but Thorn has been investigating. He says there's more to this than just politics." Illyria had heard of Thorn, the dwarf investigator with a reputation for uncovering hidden truths. If anyone could find the root of this darkness, it was him. "Then we wait," Illyria said quietly, though her heart was heavy with the weight of uncertainty. She had always believed in the power of light, in justice and peace. But now, as the forces of darkness seemed to gather around her, she wondered if the light alone would be enough. Marcus stood in the shadows of a torchlit chamber, his fists clenched at his sides. The flickering light danced across the stone walls, casting ominous shadows that stretched and twisted like the spirits of the past. Behind him, the robed figures of the Church of Darkness moved silently, their faces hidden beneath hoods of black. "You're not going to win this election with speeches," came a voice from the shadows. A tall figure stepped forward, his hood pushed back to reveal a face that was both handsome and cruel. Malek, one of the highest-ranking priests of the Church of Darkness, studied Marcus with a knowing smile. Marcus felt a surge of anger rise within him. "I'm not interested in winning by trickery," he growled. "I'll win because the people want change. They're tired of being told what to do by the elves and their precious Church of Light." Malek's smile widened. "And what if they don't? What if Illyria's promises of peace and unity sway them? Will you simply accept defeat?" Marcus turned, his eyes burning with fury. "But I'll do it my way." Malek stepped closer, his voice a soft whisper. "Your way will get you nowhere. The people are sheep, Marcus. They'll follow whichever shepherd speaks the loudest, and right now, Illyria is the voice they trust. If you want to win, you'll need more than words. You'll need power." Marcus stared at the priest, his thoughts racing. He had never trusted the Church of Darkness, but they had been his only allies in this campaign. And now, they were offering him something more, something he wasn't sure he was ready to accept. "What kind of power?" he asked quietly. Malak's smile was slow and dangerous. "The kind that changes the world. The kind that can topple kingdoms, reshape nations, and bring about a new order. All you need to do is accept it." Marcus's heart pounded in his chest. He had always wanted to change the world, to break the old systems that had kept humans, elves, and dwarves in their rigid hierarchies. But was this the way to do it? "I'll think about it," he said finally, his voice hoarse. "Don't think too long," Malak warned, his eyes gleaming with dark promise. "The forces of light are already moving. If you wait, they'll crush you." The following day, the grand debate between Illyria and Marcus took place in the same square Illyria had watched from her balcony. Thousands of citizens from all three races filled the streets, their banners waving in the breeze, their voices raised in support of their chosen candidate. Illyria stood tall, her voice clear and resonant as she spoke of peace, unity, and justice. She painted a picture of a future where all races could live together in harmony, where the old alliances would hold strong, and where the light of justice would guide them forward. But Marcus was not easily swayed. His speech was fiery, his words filled with the passion of a man who had seen the flaws in the system and was determined to change it. He spoke of inequality, of the need for revolution, of the failings of the old ways. His message resonated with the disillusioned, the angry, and the desperate. As the debate raged on, the tension in the square grew palpable. The followers of the Church of Light and the Church of Darkness stood at opposite ends of the crowd, their eyes locked on one another, their hands resting on the hilts of swords and daggers. It was Thorn who saw at first the shadowy figures moving through the crowd, their faces obscured by cloaks, their hands slipping through the air like whispers. He had been watching for hours, waiting for something or anything to confirm his suspicions. And now, it was here. The eldritch beings had arrived. In the chaos of the debate, no one noticed the subtle shifts in the air, the way the light seemed to dim for a moment, the way shadows stretched unnaturally across the ground. But Thorn noticed. He had spent his life hunting secrets, uncovering the hidden truths of the world. And now, he was seeing the most dangerous truth of all. These weren't just political enemies. They were something far older, far darker. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath, pushing his way through the crowd. He had to reach Illyria and Marcus before it was too late. But before he could, a ripple of fear spread through the crowd. A scream rang out, followed by the clash of steel. And then, all at once, chaos erupted. The hidden forces had made their move. Thorn surged forward, his instincts honed from years of navigating political traps and ancient secrets. His boots pounded against the cobblestone streets as the square exploded into chaos. Steel clashed with steel, and voices once filled with fervent support now screamed in terror. The hidden forces he had feared were no longer hiding, they were here, in the open, their presence a dark pulse that tainted the air. Illyria stood her ground at the debate podium, her eyes widening as she took in the sudden shift in the atmosphere. Marcus, on the other side of the stage, was equally stunned, though his hand instinctively moved toward the sword strapped to his side. In the maelstrom of clashing ideologies, neither had anticipated that something far older and darker was watching, waiting for the moment to strike. The eldritch beings were ancient, far beyond even the oldest of the elves, their magic woven into the very fabric of the world. Thorn had spent years chasing rumors of their existence, but now he was witnessing their influence firsthand. The beings weren't physical and not entirely, but they made their presence known through subtle manipulation, bending reality around them to suit their desires. Shadows shifted where there should have been none, and the air felt thick with unseen power. As Thorn pushed through the crowd, his mind raced. He needed to get to Illyria and Marcus, to warn them that this was no longer just a political struggle. The Eldritch beings had chosen this moment, this fragile time of decision, to manipulate the fate of the three races. And if they succeeded, the world as he knew it would be lost. On the stage, Marcus's supporters, emboldened by the chaos, began to surge forward. They weren't fighting for political change anymore. Something deeper, something primal, had taken hold of them. Their eyes glowed with a faint light, a sickly green hue that spoke of magic far darker than any the Church of Darkness could command. They moved like puppets, their strings pulled by unseen hands. Illyria's supporters, sensing the shift in the air, responded in kind. Light flared from the symbols of the Church of Light carried by her followers, but even their magic seemed strained, flickering like a candle caught in a gust of wind. The battle was no longer about light versus darkness, it was something else entirely, something neither side understood. Marcus's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the unfolding chaos. For a moment, he felt a surge of triumph. This was what he had wanted, wasn't it? Change, revolution, the end of the old ways. But something about this didn't feel right. His people, his supporters, weren't themselves. They moved like shadows of their former selves, driven by a force he couldn't control. And then, deep in his gut, he knew, this wasn't his doing. A sharp pain lanced through his head, a sudden, blinding headache that made him stagger. He pressed a hand to his temple, gritting his teeth. It was like something was inside him, whispering, tugging at his thoughts, trying to bend him to its will. He shook his head, fighting it off, but the feeling lingered. Malak's words came back to him in a rush. Power. This is the kind that can change the world. Marcus had wanted power, but not like this. Illyria, too, felt the shift. The purity of the light magic that had always been her strength felt tarnished, as though a layer of darkness had seeped into it, corrupting it from within. She called out to her supporters, but their faces were blank, their eyes distant. Her voice, once so clear and commanding, seemed to fall on deaf ears. A chill ran down her spine. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. In the midst of the chaos, Thorn finally reached the stage. He vaulted over the barricade, his dwarf frame moving with surprising agility. Illyria! He shouted, his voice barely audible over the din. She turned, her eyes locking onto his, and he saw the recognition, the understanding in her gaze. "We have to stop this," Thorn yelled, panting as he reached her side. "This isn't just a political struggle anymore." "The Eldritch beings, I know," Illyria cut him off, her voice grim. "I can feel them." Marcus, overhearing their exchange, stalked toward them, his hand still on the hilt of his sword. His expression was one of barely contained rage, but beneath it, there was fear. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. "This wasn't part of the plan." Thorn shot him a sharp look. "Your plan's gone to the abyss. This is bigger than you, bigger than any of us. The Eldritch beings are using this election as a battleground for their own ends." Marcus's grip on his sword tightened. "You expect me to believe that?" Illyria stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "You can feel it, Marcus. Don't deny it. This isn't what you wanted, is it?" "These broken bar, this is something else, something darker." For a moment, Marcus hesitated. His hand fell from his sword, and he glanced around, taking in the chaos, the madness that had consumed his followers. The certainty that had driven him for so long was crumbling, replaced by a gnawing fear that he had unleashed something he couldn't control. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice low, almost defeated. Thorn's mind raced. "We need to break the hold the Eldritch beings have on your followers. They're feeding off the conflict, the division. If we stop the fighting, we weaken them." Illyria nodded. "But how?" "The crowd's beyond reason. They're being driven by forces they don't understand." "There might be a way," Thorn said slowly, his brow furrowed in concentration. "There's a spell, an ancient one, from before the three races united. It was used to dispel dark magic, to break the influence of the eldritch beings. Marcus frowned. But we don't have time for some ancient ritual. We need something now. Thorn shook his head. This spell is quick, but it requires both light and darkness. Both of you. Marcus blinked. What do you mean, both of us? I mean, Thorn said, his eyes locking onto Marcus, you and Illyria. Together. The magic of light and darkness, balanced against each other, is the only thing powerful enough to break their hold. Illyria glanced at Marcus, her expression wary. Can we trust you, Marcus, after everything? Marcus met her gaze, and for the first time, Illyria saw something other than ambition and anger in his eyes. She saw doubt. She saw fear. But she also saw resolve. We don't have a choice, Marcus said quietly. If we don't stop this now, we all lose. Thorn quickly outlined the spell, his words clipped and precise. It was a binding spell, one that required both light and dark magic to weave together, creating a force strong enough to disrupt the eldritch influence. Illyria and Marcus, despite their differences, would have to work in perfect harmony. They took their positions, standing side by side at the center of the stage, their hands outstretched. The crowd, still caught in the throes of chaos, barely noticed them, but Thorn knew that would change once the spell took hold. Illyria closed her eyes, drawing on the light magic that had always been her strength. It surged through her, a warm, radiant force that filled her with peace and clarity. Beside her, Marcus did the same, though his magic felt different, darker, more volatile. But it wasn't evil. It was just a broken bar different. The two forces met in the space between them, clashing at first, but then slowly intertwining, weaving together into something new, something powerful. The air around them crackled with energy, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Thorn watched in awe as the spell took shape. It was working. The eldritch beings, sensing the threat, tried to tighten their hold on the crowd, but it was too late. The magic of light and darkness, balanced and united, was too strong. A blinding flash of light erupted from the stage, and for a moment, everything went still. The crowd, once consumed by madness, froze. The sickly green glow in their eyes faded, replaced by confusion and fear. Slowly, they began to lower their weapons, looking around as if waking from a dream. The eldritch beings, their influence broken, retreated into the shadows, their whispers fading into the void. The battle was over. Illyria and Marcus, exhausted but victorious, exchanged a glance. The political battle between them wasn't over, but in this moment, they had found common ground. And in doing so, they had saved their world from a far greater threat. The three races had survived another day, but the balance of light and darkness would always hang in the air, waiting for the next moment of choice.